Today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about creating your first metal music video. So just like how in metal music there's a lot of rules that we break in comparison to conventional music, same thing goes with metal music videos. These tips go for just about every music video, it's just I'll specify the ones that really have to do with metal music. So throughout this video, I'm also going to point out some things that I either did wrong or could have done better. I want to make sure that you don't make those mistakes, so definitely make sure that you stick around to the end to figure out all the things that you don't want to do. So the first step when making a metal music video is to, of course, talk to the band and figure out if you're responsible for making a treatment. A treatment is basically what the metal music video is going to be about. If there's going to be storyline, only performance, what that storyline is going to be. This is how I go about doing it. I basically listen to the song endlessly on repeat. I write down every word that I think associates to the song itself, represent what the music sounds like in video format. And by reading the lyrics, I realized that it's very politically charged. A storyline kind of came to me where it was basically a politician that's on his way out, and he knows that he's on his way out because people are just tired of what's going on. And there's a new group that's coming in that's representing basically everybody except for this guy. Some things I want to represent were static, just like the noise of what's going on in the world. I also figured it would be cool if everybody else was masked, because the only people we could get in the music video were the band members, and obviously none of them are actors, so it's a lot easier to sell something if you can't see their face, because actors are professional for a reason. I also visualized that tape would work really well in here. We could use it for symbols, can also use it to symbolize by having tape over their mouths that everybody's silenced. And I also figured it would be a cool idea if by the end we realized that this new person coming in power that everybody wants is also silencing everyone. Once I figured out my brainstorm list and wrote down all the words I thought associated with it, create a storyboard, which is basically a comic book of how you picture the music video to go. Once you've done that, I would say it's really important to get a shot list. And a shot list is every single storyline shot that you're gonna need in the music video. A lot of the times we think that we've got everything, and then we get home and we're like, I missed the most important shot. It's always the most important shot that you miss. So by typing everything out, you can just scratch everything off the list once you've got it, and then it's clear what you still need to get. So for this specific music video, I knew there was gonna be some green screen action that I was gonna have to do in Unreal Engine. I always do some sort of pre-production. The next important thing is to make sure that you book some sort of location. So we were super lucky that the bass player vocalist actually works at a car dealership, and we were allowed to shoot in the basement. So it looks super grungy. They lived about 5 hours away, so I began my long journey there. I luckily stayed at the guitar player's house, and we actually shot 2 days in a row. So all the performance was done on the first day, all the storyline was done on the second, and I strongly suggest do all your performance shots first, because things always take longer than you think it's gonna be, and you might have like this glorious music video planned, and then your setup takes hours, and then you shoot for about like 1 hour, and then by the time you've torn down everything, you have no time left. So always do the performance shots first. That way, worst case scenario, you have a performance music video. Second case scenario, you have your full music video. At first I didn't want to do it here. We had a few locations, but one didn't work out. Always have a backup plan for sure. As you can tell, the ceilings are really low in this. The light, I just do not have the option to get as personal and place it exactly where I want. But I think it kind of worked out because it just makes them feel like more congested and they're closer to the ceiling, just kind of really emphasizing the storyline. But there's a few sites like PeerSpace and Gigster that I would strongly suggest looking into. Otherwise, if you don't have much of a budget, just ask friends, ask family, see where you can shoot that doesn't charge you anything. So the more that you do these video kind of work, you'll notice that actually the lighting is 90% of what's going on. Lighting is the most important, then the lens, then the camera. Obviously you want to make sure that you have a camera that does all the things you need. The Lumix GH7 worked perfectly for this shoot. So quick disclaimer, Panasonic Lumix did send this to me to make some videos with, Panasonic Canada. But I think the fact that I own 4 other Lumix cameras at this point really shows that I have trust and I really love the brand. And also, I'm not only a Lumix user, I use a Fuji X106 for street photography stuff, and I use my Blackmagic cinema camera when I need to. So, disclaimer over. So I wasn't given money to make this, I actually did the music video for free, and I put my own money into the video just so I can do this video for everybody to learn from. A wonderful camera. I'll go into more specifics at the end of the video so you don't get bogged down with all that stuff, but lighting is super important. So right now, for instance, I have one light right here. I have one light right here that's kind of just giving me this backlight, and then I have one light in there that has what's called a gobo on it. So a gobo is something like this. So it's something that you put in the front of a spotlight and it creates some sort of shape in the light. So if I take the gobo out, what's really important is putting the light in the position that you'll get the most cinematic shots. So what easier way to demonstrate lighting than by an alien creature I've made here in Blender. Our main light source right here We've got backlight just to kind of give a little bit of that texture at the back to separate him from the background. We have some really nice shadow work on his face and some texture, and that's because of where we have the light set up. So as you can see from the top view here, we're about a 45-degree angle this way. And then from the front view, we're about a 45-degree angle this way. And to show you that the angle really makes a difference, let's now go to the top view. Let's put the light on the same angle as the camera. And look how flat that looks. You never want to shoot on the same side as the light because look how flat that works. We want the exact opposite. We want something like that where we can see all of the shape. And that's like, there's so many things that people say, oh, that's cinematic because it's like a blurry background. Blurry background's not cinematic, it's just you spend a lot of money on a fucking stupid ass lens. Cinematic is lighting. We can even demonstrate a little bit more. Let's push it even further. Let's go like right to the side. Now we're getting like a type of lighting where half of his face is lit and the other one is not at all. Super dramatic. If you're gonna take two things from this video, the first one is always shoot performance shots first, so you have a performance video at the very least. Second one is always shoot shadow side. Unfortunately, with music videos, the band members are moving around a lot, so there's parts in the music video where I'm shooting from the shadow side, but they're moving around so it doesn't look shadowed because they're facing the light. The big rule that we're going to want to break when it comes to metal music videos, specifically with the performance shots, is we want to break what's called the 180-degree rule. There's actually two 180-degree rules. I won't bother with the second one, but this first one has to do with shutter speed. So for those of you who don't know, we want to make sure that we have a 180-degree shutter. Whatever frame rate you're in, it's double that for the shutter speed. If your frame rate per second is 24 frames per second, you want to make sure that you have, say, 48 or as close to 48. We actually want to break that rule and make the shutter quite a lot faster than that double speed. And the reason we want to do that is it looks way more jarring. So for instance, here it is with the 180-degree shutter rule, and you may notice that it looks like too clean, like it doesn't suit the music. So here's a version where I actually cranked the shutter to, I think, 45-degree. Which I believe the frame rate would have been like 24 frames per second, but the shutter probably would have been like 1/120th, like quite a bit quicker than it should have been, and it just makes it look more jarring and it matches the music way more. So luckily Panasonic Canada also gave me a few lenses to use for this music video. We used the 8-18 micro four thirds. It's an f2.8 to f4, I believe. The 12-35, which is basically a 24-70 equivalent. 35-100, which is the 70-200 f2.8 equivalent. When I wanted more compression, I would switch to the 70-200 equivalent. That's definitely a 70-200 look. These shots were probably the cheapest look out of all of the entire music video. This was the 8-18. I really like that wide lens. I shot at 8mm, which is a 16mm equivalent. And then I used these really cheap lights, kind of spotlit it on them. And then I had like a little cheap newer blue light just over here, just to get a little bit of extra sauce on the ground. And here's some little shots of what the setup of that looked like. Really simple. I just put the camera on a C-stand pointing down, light on the opposite side, always lighting from the shadow side, and then I really wanted to use shadows. Shadows were like a big part of what I pictured with this music video. Shadows, there they are. Also, when you're filming, as you can see in some of the behind the scenes shots, you want to move around a lot. By moving around and having that like sharp shutter movement, having very little motion blur, if any at all, really contribute to the metal kind of like the aesthetic, I guess, and like the look of metal music videos. It's just gotta be jarring almost all the time, and then locked off tripod shots whenever you want something more digestible, just to have a little bit of like the crazy shit mixed with like the normal shit, just to have a second to breathe. When choosing a camera to shoot your music video with, you want to make sure for sure it at least has a log profile. A log profile is very gray, like you're seeing right now, and it basically just makes sure that you have the most amount of what's called dynamic range, which is basically stops of light. So luckily with the GH7, I can't remember exactly because it has something called dynamic range boost. It automatically boosts the dynamic range for you. Camera I'm shooting on right now, the S1R2, it has 14 stops of dynamic range, and on my S5 2X, it also has 14. So even though Lumix has really good autofocus at this point, I would say, unfortunately, there's another thing where it's like they're really good, but with metal music videos, you're gonna use manual focus. Autofocus just looks like too digital. You'll be filming, say, the bass player, and then you switch to the drummer, it's like instantly there, and you don't get like that out of focus look. I can't remember the song off the top of my head, but it's like a Lorna Shore music video where almost the entire music video is out of focus. Some of my favorite parts in the music videos are when it's out of focus or when it transitions from out of focus to in focus. So absolutely, in my opinion, no autofocus for the music videos, at least for the performance shots, because there's actually one gimbal shot. I knew I wanted like the smoothest footage, and I'm not the smoothest walker, so even with like really good Lumix IBIS, I knew it wasn't gonna properly work. If you haven't yet, go check out the music video and you'll see what I mean. Another thing to keep in mind when choosing a camera for your shoot are exposure tools. Some monitors, like the ones I use, have exposure tools built in, but they're not super reliable. I don't want to make it seem like Lumix is the only camera brand out there to choose, but Lumix has some of the best exposure tools. So we have zebras, which are basically we're going to create lines when we've reached 70% of blowing out our highlights. You don't want to blow your highlights out, trust me. So you want to make sure that you have something like waveforms, something like zebras, or something like false color. I personally prefer false color. It's just gonna show you where all of your exposure is on the image. This probably goes without saying, but obviously renting gear is the way to go. I rent stands, I rent lights, I sometimes rent lenses. Renting it is actually way cheaper than you expect it to be. Especially if you rent it on the weekends. Most shops have like a weekend price where it's like a day is free. So now that we have everything shot, let's hop into DaVinci Resolve and let's begin the editing and color grading process. Let's start by editing, and what I like to always do is to group all of the performance shots into one single track, and this is called a multicam track. First, before we do that, let's jump into our project settings and just make sure that we're editing this in the right frame rate before we bring any clips into DaVinci Resolve. Once you bring a clip into the timeline here, you can't change your frame rate. I've already said it, as you can see, I can't change it, but here's where you would put whichever frame rate you're aiming for. So now let's select all of our clips, and you'll see right here there's an audio track. It's really important to have the final version of the song, or even just a rough mix of the song, to sync everything to. So we're gonna right click, create multicam clip using selected clips. Instead of angle sync, we're gonna do sound. And then if you want, we can rename this performances. And then we hit create. And now we have our clip right here. All we have to do is drag and drop, and you'll see it brought in our audio track, and you see how it's like all the way at the end? What we want to do now is make sure that our audio is synced correctly. So we can right click here, and then we're going to go into open timeline, and this is going to show us all of those individual clips. For some reason, these ones are way over there, which is obviously incorrect. Let's move them over. No matter what your specs are on your computer, running this many multicam clips, 16 clips, it's gonna be heavy on your computer to watch all of them at once. So what you wanna do at this point, open up the original clips folder, and then select all of them minus the audio. And then we wanna create proxies, which are just really low res versions of the video that will allow us to play back in real time instead of having like the laggiest, terrible footage. Generate proxy media. It does take up a lot of space. And then once that's loaded, we can see right here, either by clicking here, we can go prefer proxies or prefer camera originals. We can also go up to playback here, proxy handling, prefer proxies. So now that we're done here, to get back to our normal timeline, let's just click timeline 1. You'll notice right off the bat that no video is showing in here. It's because for some reason, angle 1 syncs the audio, and obviously the audio has no video attached. So what you want to do is right click here, and you could switch it to another angle. And I always forget how to do it on a laptop. So if you're on a laptop, you have to look this up. But if you're on a desktop, you can click right here, and this will show us like a multi-view. And then we're going to click here, and instead of source, we go to multicam. And now we can see all of the clips, all 16 of them. So we just press play, and then I can either clip here, and that will cut it. Or on the keyboard here, I can press the number, and it will switch to it wherever I imagine. We have all of those cuts down here, but we made one vital mistake: video and audio in the multicam setup. Go to video only. And since we did that, all these cuts are happening to the audio too. So we're going from the mix to this random cut, to this random cut, to this random cut. As we play the song through, we're making cuts to the video, but the audio down here is remaining unaffected. And that's the basics of multicam. And then another thing, if it's still going a little bit slow, there's a few things that we can do to optimize. While we're editing, we can just drop the timeline resolution to 1080. We can obviously go back to 4K after, and everything's gonna be like fine. And then we can go to playback, and then in playback resolution, we can also go to like half or quarter, and this will just get more and more pixelated, but play back smoothly. Now let's go over the basics of color grading. So again, we have all of those performance shots within this one clip. Right click and go into open timeline. This is a proper color grading workflow. So since all of these are shot on the Lumix GH7 and we're using the RE-Log-C, it makes it really easy. All we do is right click, add into new group. We'll call it performances. And you may not have noticed because I didn't really show it, but before we only had 2 dots up here, but now we have 4. So we want to go to this first one, which is the pre, and this is where I add one color space transform. So as I mentioned earlier, you want to shoot in log if you can. If not, you want to shoot in raw, which is even higher quality, but takes up more space. Since we're shooting in RE Log C, there's two ways that we can do it. Lumix actually does have a conversion LUT from RE Log C to Rec 709. What I like to do is take the color space transform that the footage was shot on and transfer it into DaVinci Wide Gamut, which gives us even more space within our color grading options. And then we can just go to the end, go to group post clip, which is going to happen after everything else is done. We're going to add another color space transform, convert it to DaVinci Wide Gamut. We're going to say our input is DaVinci Wide Gamut. Our output, basically anything for the web, is Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4, as far as I know. So now we have what actually it looked like out of the camera. So now we can go into the clip, and here's where we'll make all of our individual changes to each specific clip. It might be a little bit weird at first when you're getting used to DaVinci Resolve. It kind of works. Imagine it's like, if you're a musician, a pedal board. So depending on the order of the pedals that you have will affect your signal chains. If you have your distortion, then your reverb, it will be drastically different than if you have your reverb first and then your distortion. So I like to keep this first one for highlight correction. I do the next one, which is my primaries. Primaries are basically just like adjusting my exposure and white balance. For this specific music video, I really want to go with a bleach bypass look, really desaturated and also really pushed in contrast. You might be thinking, okay, let's just push the contrast and get rid of the saturation, but with bleach bypass, it's a very specific process. If you want to learn more, I would say look it up because it's a really technical thing that I don't know the technical side of it, but I know how to do it. So we're going to right click, go to add node, create a layer node. This is very important, keep it a layer node. We're going to go to the top one here, go to our saturation down here, roll it to 0, and it might not look like anything happened. What we want to do is go into this section, which is our actual layer, go to composition mode or composite mode, and make sure it's overlay. And now look at it. One thing that bleach bypass always does is it really brings down the exposure, so it's super dark. So what we're gonna do is go into our primaries, this is why it's first, and go into the offset here. And now we'll just boost it until it's back to something forgivable. So this is it from the log profile straight to like a Rec 709 look. And then with the bleach bypass, we have this. It's looking pretty good, but we can get it even more there. Sometimes I'll do a contrast node, but I don't like using contrast like this. I find a better way to do it. Create a new node, and then I'm just gonna use my custom curves here. We can click here and go editable splines, and then now we can raise our black point, but we have this handle here that lets us kind of push everything in a gradient way. This is like level 1 of doing this. Another way to do it is just get rid of the editable splines, and we can just do it like this. So that's before and that's after. Just making the look a little bit more punchy. And if we want to make it even more punchier, we can bring this shadowy section down even more. Next, I'm going to add a glow. Even look at what it did already. It's just gonna glow those highlights to kind of give it more, but dare I say, filmic look. Let's get it closer to the original, so let's push it more in the green and yellow, and we're already there. With a few of those nodes, straight out of camera to a Rec 709 conversion to the bleach bypass look. But I think it matches the music a lot more. We can click on one of these clips, middle click, and it'll share the grade over. What you'll notice is that I'm clicking on here and it's showing another clip, and that's because it's kind of just going to whatever clip is here. So we can either mute it, also within the color correction section, click on here, and then click on another one, and then we can go into split screen, and then selected clips. And now we'll see only those 2 that we selected, or 3. Just keep in mind that whichever one has the red highlight around it is the one that is going to be affected by whatever changes you make in here. And then just go through the entire music video with this kind of process. Try to match it so that the colors look the same, and just do your best. And then at the very end, I like to add my grain before my output. So to put a node before something, you do Shift S instead of Alt S. And then here, I'm gonna go to grain, and find the right grain that works for you. So I really like, if I'm really pushing grain, 16mm archival print. It's adding all of that nice texture that you can see there, hopefully. I don't know what YouTube's gonna do to this. But we can obviously push it even more if we want, and it's a metal music video, so let's push it. Use your discretion and choose whatever you like. What's nice is since it's on the group output, now all of the clips have that. So I did the same technique when it came to the actual storyline. And one thing that you can do that would actually probably be better than what I did, I didn't really color code certain things. These are all the storyline clips. Let's select all of these. We can go into clip color and orange. And now you can see these are all of the storyline clips. This was one of the most important shots when it came to the B-roll. When I kept hearing this song, this is like something that I visualized, just the person like right up to the TV, soaking it in and just being completely absorbed. And this, I'm just in my bedroom watching TV, watching the news, and you can see within the stuff that I'm putting onto the TV, I actually put their logo in the corner as if it's like the IC Aura TV station. One of the first things the band said was, I love how you put the IC Aura logo in there. It's all the little details that make such a difference. The more you watch something, the more these things come through. So this is one of my favorite shots and one of the hardest shots I had to do. We basically did tons of green screen shots where it's the back of their heads, as you can see, at different angles, and I just like stacked them in Unreal Engine, different angles of it. So you see the audience here, Mike's still got the X over his mouth. It's like they're watching him. And then this shot here, where it's the reverse. This was like a really fun experiment and I learned a lot doing this. So these last shots, I sent them the first cut of the music video, and one of their notes was like, it would be really cool if we can have like black liquid coming out of the eyes. They specifically asked for it over this shot. The mask, I think I taped it to a C-stand, like a light stand, and then I took black paint and I just like squirted it through the eyeballs, which you can see in this video here. And then I just had it slowly coming down and like adding more and more paint until it ended up with this creepy ass look right here. And then one final thing, if you've seen my Spirit Box video where I recreated their music video, then you'll know about adding like glitches and stuff like that. All I'm really doing is going through adding like overlays of grunge and shit like that. So this clip on its own is just this stuff. But then by having it at a lower opacity and a different kind of look, we're adding all this grunge in the background. So with it and without it. I think like a lot of the clips have this kind of grunge or something, and it just like really makes it feel. If you have footage that you're like, this is important to the storyline, but it didn't turn out as good as I wanted it to, lean into it, just grunge it up. If it looks like shit, make it look more like shit and pretend like I made it look like shit on purpose. Or sometimes you do make it shit on purpose, like specifically with this shot. It needed to look like shit because if it looked good, then I kind of fucked up. So let me show you how to do slow-mo real quick within Resolve. It's gonna play back regular. Out of the boxes like this, you press R and it shows up your clip speed, change clip speed, or you can right click and then go into change clip speed. And then since I shot this in 60 frames per second, I know it's 40% of the speed of my timeline, which is 24 frames per second. Now that we have the music video all done, I'll leave a link down below to like YouTube's recommended settings. 4K, it's different than 1080p. We'll go down here, which is our deliver or export window. And then you'll notice here, it's at 1920 by 1080 because we didn't switch back. So now that the music video is done editing, you go into Project Manager and then go back into 4K, save it, and now go back. And now you can see it's set to 4K, which is wonderful. For YouTube, 4K, I think the highest they recommend is 44,000. So that's what I go with. And then I basically keep everything else stock. If you have suggestions down below, let me know. I didn't mention it, but you want to make sure that you have only the music video selected. As you can see, there's a bunch of extra stuff that I have at the end. So go to the beginning, press I, go to the end of the music video or whatever, or wherever you want to end it, press O, and then add to render queue, and then render one. Again, I've mentioned in other videos, Unreal Engine is free, Blender is free, DaVinci Resolve has a free version. If you're trying to make a music video for the lowest budget that you possibly can, I would start out with DaVinci Resolve, the free version. Just keep in mind some professional features from your camera, things like 10-bit recording. The free version of Resolve, at least as far as I know, I don't know if they changed it, you can only do 8-bit footage. If you shoot in 10-bit, it actually will only bring in the audio and not the video. So make sure if you're using the free version to shoot in 8-bit. And I think it also maxes out at 4K, so you can't do like 8K renders or something, which nobody's doing anyways. You have the Blackmagic phone app where you can get better video than like your stock iPhone or Android footage. Just try it out. You might find something that you absolutely love. You may not like it and you won't ever want to do it again, but you never know until you try. Like I promised, here's a few things I did wrong, especially when it comes to the green screen. I didn't realize that we were gonna have a limit at the location, so we got cut off. Luckily, we got all the performance stuff, and we figured, okay, we'll just do everything else on green screen. So we were filming in the guitar player Mike's basement. His walls are white, so unfortunately, the light and the green from the green screen kind of reflected onto the wall and then back onto their faces. So I actually got a lot of green in the mask itself. Luckily, DaVinci Resolve has a ton of like tools that help really well. So I did my normal green screen keying, and then I copied the footage above, and then I used Magic Mask to just cover the section that was getting removed. I don't know, I'm personally happy. And the important thing to note is that the band said this is their best music video that they have. So that's really all that matters. You just want to make sure that your band or your artist is happy with the product at the end of the day. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the very end, I strongly appreciate that so much. If you have any further questions, leave them down below. I do read and reply to every single comment, so don't get crazy though. Let's be real, don't get crazy. I know someone's gonna get crazy down there. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking around. If you are interested in seeing any more of this video stuff or the Unreal Engine side of things, I have a secondary channel that's geared towards more of the filmmaking and CGI stuff that you can check out right here. And yeah, appreciate you all so much, and good luck on your next adventure. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.